You are listening to KMMU, that is Main Street Media, Utah, and you are listening to the Liberty Moms Show. This is the Liberty Moms Show. Liberty Moms are the original Secretaries of Defense. We are the real defenders of the home front, and we are there when it comes to defending our families and our communities. I'm your host, Dalane England. We have a wonderful lineup of other Liberty Moms this morning, or today, I should say, because you might not be listening to it this morning. But anyway, we're really excited to have a couple of Liberty Moms. First of all, we're going to have Melanie Mortenson, who is, she is a certified educator. She is running for the Davis School Board, and we will be discussing education issues, why she's running, and what we are dealing with in our education system in the state of Utah, as well as across the United States. We will also be having Debby Mylar, who is going to be talking to us today as the founder of a 501c3 nonprofit about abuse in the home, especially domestic abuse. And so that's going to be very interesting and I think very enlightening. And so we welcome, first of all, Melanie Mortenson. Welcome, Melanie. As I said, Melanie is a certified educator, and she has taught, she has her degree, she has taught in public school. She is a mother of 4 children. I just want to give her an extra child, you know.
I'll claim them. I have 2 bonus kids and my cute in-laws that I will totally claim.
Exactly. So she's really got 6 kids now.
That's right.
To collect some more. And we're really happy to have you with us, Melanie.
Thank you so much, Dalane. It is an honor, privilege to be here. I'm excited to talk with you guys today.
Thank you. Well, education is a huge, huge issue, not just for me, but whether you get it or not, it's a big issue because the education system forms our future.
Yes.
It helps to determine what our culture will be, how educated and how the ideology of our future and the future leaders of our country and of our world. And so education is really important, even if people don't know how important it is. It is important to everyone, whether they're kids or they don't have kids, or their kids are in private school and they're not in public school, or they're homeschooling. It affects every single one of us. And so tell us, I know that you are, you got your degree in education and you're a certified educator, and then you kind of stepped away for a few years while you raised your family.
I did. Yep.
And so why did you decide to do that? Why was that important to you to step away from your career in order to raise your family?
So for me, the highest priority was to be able to be the primary influence for my children. And my husband and I had discussed it beforehand, and he was supportive of either way I chose. But for me, I wanted to be in the home. I wanted to be available to my children. I wanted to be on hand, on deck, 24/7. And so that was a higher priority for me. And as much as I missed my students, it was a joy to be a mom. And I think it's one of the most challenging and most stretching opportunities we will ever have. And I don't regret it for a second.
Absolutely. I totally concur. I did the same thing. I felt like it was a huge sacrifice, but I never regretted it for 1 nanosecond. So grateful that I had the opportunity to do it and the ability to do it and the support. And what I think young mothers don't always realize, because when you start your family and you have kids and you have a house full of kids, it feels like you're always going to have kids. It just seems like a long ways
crazy
away.
Time.
But I'm just here to say it happens so quickly. Yes. And then you have many years that your kids are raised and grown, and you have many years that you can go out and have a career, and you can, use your talents and do other things with your life.
And I remember hearing that, we'd be in the grocery store and I'd have one kid crying and one kid grabbing something off the shelf, and this cute grandma would walk by and just smile and just say, "Oh, those are such precious years." And I'm like, "Do you want one?" Because I have some extra, and they're driving me crazy. But it is true. Those moments feel like you're absolutely getting flooded, and yet looking back on it, it's so fleeting.
A magical time.
I'm so grateful for that. Yeah, for those opportunities I had.
Okay, so Melanie, you decided to run for the school board in Davis County. the issues that we'll be discussing really apply to everyone across the state and really the United States, because we're dealing with so many of the same issues.
Yes.
So why did you decide that you should run for the school board?
So I have been working, when I stepped away from my career and my kids started school, I started working in their classrooms and helping their teachers. And I saw, how much our teachers are asked to do. And it was another privilege to be able to go in and be the math specialist or be the reading specialist or plan the classroom parties or be the parent outreach person. I played many, many roles through many, many years of public education and being able to help those teachers with the things that they needed, whether it's any of those things or gathering supplies or whatnot. But over the years, I've been on the community council. I've been on curriculum councils. I have worked with administrators. I've worked with teachers. The past couple of years, I've been working with the state school board and the state legislature. And it has been fascinating to learn just the different nuances of how responsibility for public education works, from our lawmakers to the state school board to the district level and then down to each individual school. And let's see, about the end of December, I noticed that our current representative was not running again, so it was an open seat. And I thought, I honestly felt compelled. I felt like my education, my background really has prepared me well for this. And I'm passionate about education. I'm passionate about doing right by our kids and about supporting our teachers and helping our parents. And I have experience on all of those fronts. And so I just felt like I really have a toolbox to be able to bring to the service of Davis County and to help all of those different groups and stakeholders and be able to improve our education.
Okay, fantastic. That is really great. So Melanie, what do you think are some of the most important issues that we're facing education right now that you really specifically want to zoom in on and work on?
So I feel like over my experience, and granted, it's probably been, 20 years, I feel like there's been a huge breakdown, a degradation of trust. And I'm talking trust between teachers and parents, trust between parents in the district, trust between the teachers in district. And none of that is good, right? None of that breeds positive outcomes for our students. And we have to be, as a district, hyper-focused on the best outcomes for our students. And what that entails is building those relationships and building those partnerships that we have between parents and districts, parents and teachers and districts. And so I have some ideas about ways that we can improve those relationships and improve our practices that will help create more honesty and transparency from the district down to every level. And I think that in and of itself will breed more trust and it will help parents. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that said, look, I may not agree with what you're deciding, but if I know why you're deciding that, I can get on board. And so if we show the evidence that's backing up our decisions, which we don't do very often, then I think we would have better understanding. And if we answer parents' questions and answer their concerns instead of just saying, nope, I've decided that because I've decided that, and you get to live with it. That doesn't help anybody. That's not a partnership. That's a power-hungry dictatorship. And I'm not saying that's necessarily what we have, but I just feel like we need to increase the trust. We need to increase the transparency and especially the honesty involved. Do you want me to go into some more detail? I have some different ideas there.
I really like that. And I think it is really important because even if I might not agree with you, at least I would know that you're being honest and open about it. Then we can have a conversation about it. I might be able to compel you, or then I know what you're doing. Then I can say, you know what, I'm going to take my child out for this, or I'm going to tailor it this way. So it gives me a lot more power as a parent to do what is, in my opinion, the best interest of my children. So I love that, that openness, that transparency, and building trust, because building trust doesn't happen by being Stepford people, like being exactly the same. It comes from that openness, that honesty, and that communication.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, feel free to go into more detail, because it's always nice to say that, but like, how would you?
Yeah, what does that mean?
What does it mean, and how would you actually do it?
So let me give you an example with the parent aspect. We have parents that come to the board meetings and give public comment. And for those who haven't tried to do that before, it's an intimidating process. You have the whole board watching you, you know you're being recorded, you have people behind you, you have a time limit, and you don't want to get cut off, and you don't want to get embarrassed. And so that takes a lot of courage for a parent to come before the board and express a concern. And so in my mind, when that happens, that parent's concern needs to be addressed. And whether it's a question or a concern or a comment or whatever it is that they're bringing before the board, we as a board should respond. We should respond.
Goodness, Melanie.
Wouldn't that be incredible?
That is so huge. I have testified at school board meetings many times, and it feels like the biggest waste of time, because you go in and you share, and then they just sit there and go, your time's up, next person.
Yes.
They never respond to anything that you say. They're not accountable. They do not respond. They never, ever get back with you and say,
if you're lucky,
or this is why I disagree.
Thank you.
Educate me. Educate me where I'm wrong.
Yeah.
You're educators. Yeah. Educate me. I'm an educator.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like it's our responsibility, again, to build that partnership. Let's let parents know what's happening here so they can get on board. And then we'll have greater support as a board. We'll have greater understanding as parents. And even if we disagree, we'll have that evidence to back up those decisions and to get greater understanding.
So if you're on the board, you're going to suggest that you're going to lobby and work towards the board responding to the parents' issues, responding to the parents' testimony at the time.
Yes, with a real answer. And maybe not even at that same time, because there might be things we need to research, right?
Or
there might be questions we need to look
with each other, or need to research. Like you say,
exactly.
You don't, like, I don't even know about that. I need to do some research. I did not realize that was a problem.
Right. And so often when I send in questions, the board right now, I think they're really good at responding and getting back to people. What I feel like we're missing is the key component of an answer, and not just political speak. And a lot of times they don't know. And so they have to ask somebody, that works within the district. And so I think as a board, we could get together and get those answers, and we could assign different board members to respond. We could assign one person to be the response coordinator. I'm happy to do that. And I recognize that means more work for me, but I'm willing to put it in because I think the benefits outweigh the work they're required.
And you could get citizens to help with that if you needed to. I mean, I'm
absolutely
sure you could get an assistant.
Absolutely.
That gets overwhelming, and that would also engage other parents in feeling like they have a voice. Yes. And I do like what you said, that would do so much to increase the trust. I'm glad that we went into this. This is a huge
it's a problem. And we've seen too often where parents are dismissed. Yes. and told to sit down and be quiet and be good little boys and girls, right? And that's, again, we want to build a partnership. We want to build a community that is focused on the betterment of our children. And at the end of the day, that's what everybody wants, is for our children to be successful in their efforts and in their education. And so I think that's something we can all get behind and work together to achieve.
Beautiful. So, okay, did you have something else?
So yeah, on the teacher aspect, I have been to the board meetings for many years now, and the most recent curriculums that were adopted had some interesting issues with them. Curriculum selection is one of the district responsibilities. The state sets the standards for each grade level at each subject, what students are to understand and to know by the end of that grade. And the district gets to choose the curriculum that aligns with those standards. So as our responsibility goes, when we choose these curriculums, what we should be looking for is rich content, high quality, evidence-based, with proven outcomes, so that we can see this is the best possible product that we can offer our teachers to be able to teach our students. And when we do that, that makes our teachers' lives easier because they don't have to prepare as much. And that makes our students happier because they have this fantastic education they're getting. it also makes our teachers' lives easier in that they know exactly what they have to teach. And it's very streamlined, and there's no second guessing their responsibilities. Most recently, they adopted a math curriculum, didn't have any instruction available. And so that's asking our teachers to create all of the instruction to be able to teach the skills. And I feel like that's unfair to our teachers. That's asking too much of them.
That's real, Melanie? That's real?
That's real. That's
They
real.
gave them standards with no curriculum?
It's like an online textbook of homework assignments with no help. With no help. And many times, this has happened a couple times in our district, the teachers district-wide have gotten together and said, this curriculum isn't rigorous enough, or it doesn't give us enough details, or we need extra. So they'll create their own, which super kudos to them. But again, that's unfair. That's unfair.
I'm quite used to that because as a teacher, I really get a lot of latitude in some of my classes to create my own, but it is very gratifying. It's extremely time consuming.
Yes.
It's very time consuming. Plus, once I do it, I want to share it with everybody because I don't want other people to spend all that time creating it.
Yeah.
So they can take mine, they can improve on it, which I love, like improve on it and share it with me.
Right.
But why should every single teacher go through and create their own? That does seem insane.
Well, and there are teacher networks, but the teachers I've talked to, they're told not to share.
No, serious?
Right, and that may be interdistrict, but why reinvent the wheel if we don't need to? But why are we asking our teachers to invent the wheel in the first place?
Yeah.
So there's a fine line to be found there, and we're a big enough district that we have some weight we can throw around, and we can request the best and the most effective, like I said, evidence-based, proven outcomes, rich culture, rich content, and really high quality to be able to do the best by both our teachers and our students. So that's something I think we could absolutely do. I would also love to see more teacher input. We have a couple teachers that are selected to be on curriculum selection committees with the district employees. And I would love to take that then, and let's have one more step before we adopt that curriculum, and let's beta test it. Let's send it out to, a few hundred teachers and say, give me your feedback, and let's get some honest feedback and some realistic, what does this look like where the rubber hits the road? Is this going to work for you, or should we go back and look at another option?
Okay, so I have a question for you regarding that.
Yeah.
Didn't they do that with Summit? Didn't they beta test Summit?
I actually don't know.
Okay.
From what I've heard, Summit was kind of pushed through with no options for questioning.
Okay. Well, what I do know is that a lot of the teachers, this is something that people need to be really aware of, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Teachers got it, and they, at first glance, they absolutely loved it because they loved how it did help teachers. It saved a lot of time for teachers. It's all there. But what happened is teachers didn't really realize the back end of it. They saw the front end and how it worked for teachers, but they didn't really see the content and the actual back end of what was actually there inside. So they liked the facility of it, but they didn't realize the content. And so it took some time before teachers realized what was really there and how it worked. And so then they initially really got excited and opted in. And I just think that's an important part too, is we can look at something and we're like, oh my gosh, the way the platform, the way this works, it's so interactive. It's really user-friendly, well-designed, but then we have to look at what the actual content is.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Right. And
I think that just requires more time, and that's okay if we plan for it. It's not okay if we don't plan for it and all of a sudden we're rushed and all of a sudden teachers don't have access to their curriculum until the week before school. And again, that's unfair to them. There's no planning. There's a lot of rushing and high anxiety that creates. That's unfair.
It's not fair to them, and it definitely doesn't work for the students.
Well, and going back to my original point, it's not breeding trust, right? We're not giving the teachers a supportive foundation from which to do the best that they can do with, what they love doing. And we should be here providing everything we can to make their job better so they can do what they signed on to from the first place.
Okay. Did you have any others? I have some questions for you, but I don't want
Go
to
ahead.
change the subject until you're ready.
Yeah,
Because
go
I'm
ahead.
going to change the subject.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right. So one of the greatest concerns that I have a couple, but one of the greatest concerns I have in public school is the amount of pornography that is in school. And we're told the reason that it's there is because children that are struggling with mental illness, anxiety, or they're gay or lesbian or transgender issues, body identity, that they need books that they can relate to. And so, of course, I think that kids should definitely have books that they identify with and relate to, but I don't think any of them should be sexual. I think they need to be given books that they relate to that are not sexual, but every child has interests, and they should be allowed and have available at their fingertips books that give them access to things that they are excited about, interested in.
For sure.
Reading is so fundamental and really very exciting and gives us so many opportunities to really get educated and to learn about different topics. But I don't understand why any of those topics should be about sexual identity, because they're children.
No, and I would argue that those would be more damaging.
Yes,
for our children.
I would definitely argue that, because we do know that when pornography is addictive for children, in one exposure, a child can be addicted, if not 2 or 3. And so, and it is, of course, they're fascinated and interested. And so when a child gets addicted to pornography, it's so much harder to overcome that addiction, whatever addiction is. It doesn't need to be pornography, but anytime an undeveloped brain gets addicted to something, it is so much more difficult, takes so much more time to overcome that addiction, where if a fully developed brain as an adult gets addicted, the brain is developed, so overcoming that addiction is never easy, but it's more doable. Right. So we really do want to, as a society, as educators, as parents, want to protect our children from all and any addictions as minors. But we do have a lot of pornography in schools. There's all kinds of excuses for it. The current Davis County School Board member that you are looking to replace has been in for quite some time, and I have spoken with her. I have not been able to see any books removed because of her stewardship. What do you think you can do? Is it possible for you to do something? What can you do? What do you plan to do?
Well, so I think this is such an interesting issue, because it to me, it seems very, very cut and dry.
So self-evident.
Right? We have state laws that prevent pornography from being distributed. We have bright line rules. We have so many resources to be able to tell very quickly which books violate those laws and which don't. And I know there's always concerns about legal issues and ramifications, but if we're following state law and we have a lawsuit brought against us, they're going to have to prove not only does this book not violate state law, but that it's actually beneficial for children, which I think would be very difficult for some of those literatures. So these is the literature. So, and let me preface this by saying I am a huge bookworm. I am an English teacher. I love reading. I love the escape artistry that we get to enjoy when we get whisked away to foreign lands, and we get to enjoy different characters and different adventures and things that, you may not be able to actually travel to places, but you can go there in a book. And I love that we have stories from different cultures and different countries. And it's such a rich world available to us.
And we're so blessed to have
there's so many good ones.
Books available to us.
Right?
Not like the olden days where they really had the Bible and they didn't have access to the books. We have the world. It is amazing. And I love what you said. It's so true, because I love reading, and I love how you can experience so many things through an amazing writer that you can feel, you can smell, you can taste, you can touch.
Yes.
You can actually, they can create it where you feel like you're there. It's amazing.
Yes, they're so talented. So I'm a huge advocate for more reading, not less.
Yes,
And
right,
and there are many factors that are addressing that. But when we look at our school libraries, we have to curate what's there anyway. And they've been doing that since the beginning of school libraries. So there's no way we can fit every single book on the shelves. Even the Library of Congress struggles with that,
right.
right? So
Yes.
let's look at getting the best and the brightest. And our librarians are trained to do this. And we can help facilitate that by just making it easy to obey the law. And I know Davis has gone through a couple policy revisions. Because of their issues with the Bible getting banned and making international news and those kind of things that we'd like to avoid, making mistakes in the future. But I do feel like it's a very cut and dry decision. It's a very cut and dry process. And if it meets the bright line rule, it's out. And if it's subjective, we can take it from there. But our laws are clear in this state, which is I'm so grateful that our legislatures worked very, very hard to make these laws very clear. And I think we can help support, again, create these partnerships of trust with our school librarians and with our parents and with our teachers by doing the right thing, by following the law.
I love that. Absolutely. So I do know that it is because of our laws, it is possible. And I am disappointed, shocked, and frankly horrified that we still have so much pornography in our schools, including
It
Davis.
shouldn't be this slow of a process.
It should not be that. It should not be so difficult and so
Mhm.
egregious. And it just seems unbelievable that for this long, we still have,
Yes,
it's still an issue. It's still a problem.
it's been years now. I mean,
So
it's not even a
it's
couple
been
months
years.
going on. This is multiple years.
I do want to be able to elect people that are going to go in there and get this problem handled because I think it's very doable. And
Yeah.
I just like we can't continue to destroy our children in this way. We just need to get people that are willing to go in there and get these books out and protect our children.
Absolutely.
Okay, so another thing that's really important to me is I think that our Constitution needs to be taught in school. And I know that it is just such a snippet. We teach it on Constitution Day, maybe, because if you don't do it, it's a law. But if you don't do it, there's no consequences. We teach it supposedly in 5th, 8th, and 11th grades. The founders were ever so clear that the Constitution, that our republic must be taught in school, that we needed to be the only way we can keep our republic, the only way we can keep the Constitution is if the benefactors of it, us as citizens, are educated in it.
Yes.
And as I think you may or may not be, I'm not really sure because I do share this often, but it was 15 years ago that an Ivy League university did a survey with the Congress of that time, 15 years ago. Congress,
Yeah.
and they just asked one question on the survey. And that question was, have you ever read the Constitution? So this is not going into depth, studying it at length, really understanding it, but have you simply
just read it through?
Read it? What percentage of Congress openly admitted that they had never even read the Constitution?
I'll bet there's a high percentage that haven't, but the percentage that admitted it is probably lower.
Well, I'm just saying it's a high percentage that actually admit it. It's a high number, higher than you would think.
Well, I'm impressed that they would admit to that. That's kudos for the first part.
Well, they didn't put their names on it, so they apparently
well,
some
safer.
of them were actually honest, but it was 80%.
Wow, had never read it.
Admitted they'd never read it, let alone studied it or understood it. Yeah, 100% of them took a sacred oath to uphold the Constitution. They didn't take an oath. It doesn't say that you will follow your conscience, do what you think is right. It says, I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. How do you uphold a Constitution if you don't know what's in it?
Yes.
Very hard, which explains why so many Congress people violate their oath because they don't know their oath. They don't know what they took an oath to do. So I feel like as citizens, we can't hold them accountable if we don't know. We tend to want them to do what we want, not what the Constitution says, because we don't understand the Constitution. So we just go, well, I want them to do this for me. And it's like, well, you want to have the federal government come in and solve all these problems, but does it matter to you that it is not, they do not have the constitutional authority or power to do it? Do you care that they don't have the authority? Do you want them to violate the Constitution?
Right.
You want federalism where the state or the county or the city may or may not help. Maybe that should be an issue that's done by citizens, depending on the issue. But at least we should be able to determine this is the federal government's power. This is what their role is. And this, if it's not there, if it's not one of the 20 things listed in the Constitution, then it is the role of the states or the people. And so then we can say, well, I want my state to do that. And I think socialized medicine comes to my mind right off the bat, not to change the subject, but nowhere in the federal Article 1, Section 8 does it give the federal government power or authority to make any laws regarding education or to fund it. And yet, all kinds of, it doesn't give them any authority or ability to even fund or take care of our medication or medicine.
That's a great example of what should not be allowed to have happen because it's not in the Constitution.
And if you understood the Constitution, you're like, well, that might be great, but you're going to have to turn that back to the states because it's not the role of the government. You have this with abortion, people upside down because they want a federal law, but the Constitution never gave power and authority or constitutionality for anything like that. And just if you want to go with the healthcare issue, healthcare is not a federal authority
responsibility.
Yeah. So so I feel like the Constitution, one of the biggest problems that we have right now is because we don't know the Constitution as a citizenry. And I talk to legislators all the time. I talk to people that hold positions of power that will admit to me, and it's really obvious, like when you have a conversation with them, like, I'm not trying to humiliate anyone or embarrass them. It's like you can tell pretty quickly who knows something about the Constitution versus who knows nothing. And so it's a problem. So what do you feel about having classes? Should this be after school? Because I do not want it to be partisan. I do not want it to be any kind of
it needs to be national, right? This is learning about the country that you belong to, that you live in. This is the one flag we can all get behind, right? Because it's the one of our country. And I feel like it's so important for our kids to understand patriotism, to understand the fundamental values that make up our country, right? Our rules that we abide by. So a couple of thoughts came to mind.
You don't know what your rights are. You can't support them. You can't stand for them. Due process. If you don't know what due process is, you just can be taken advantage. If you don't know what's in Article 1, Section 8 that gives the powers to the federal government, to the Congress, if you don't know what you might be asking them to do things that violate those powers. If you're not familiar with Article 4, Section 4, that calls upon the executive branch, the president, to secure the borders of the United States. It's clearly part of the constitutional requirement of the executive branch. Well, if you don't know that, then you don't know to hold them accountable or to
and how interesting would it be if we had a general population who understood that and then would say, well, hold on, Mr. President, as an entire nation, if we got behind that and said, oh, this is your job, you need to be doing your job. But so a couple of things come to mind while you were talking about that. First of all, I was able to attend the live reading that was held last Thursday or Friday. Friday. Yeah, it was Friday morning. And it was fascinating because this is the second time I've been there and experienced that. And it's so powerful. It's so cool to have people from all around the world, literally, who are now citizens of the United States who are reading these words that our founding fathers wrote. It was very emotional for me and a very powerful experience.
And it only takes 45 minutes. So it is something that
it's totally doable.
Any fifth grader can do.
To understand it, because as I was following
understanding is a totally different issue.
I thought, man, they jam-packed so much into every single paragraph. my just absolute gratitude and I'm just so
Ah,
impressed. Yes, just awe of what they were able to accomplish with
genius.
this.
It's a
Um,
genius. It's
it
absolutely
absolutely
a
is, but it's
genius
one of
work.
those things that is worth the time, right? It's worth a 45-minute read, even just to peruse it and to be able to say, okay, I've read it, checked the box. I may not understand everything, but at least I have an idea of what's in there, right?
Well, and reading it, you might go, gosh, I don't even know what that means. So then once you've read it, you're like, okay, I need to go figure out what this means.
Yeah,
So now I
yeah,
can do a little research and study so I
exactly.
understand this.
Exactly. The other thing that I thought of was the USBE last year just created a civics fitness award. And this is something brand new that they've ever done. We've always done like presidential fitness awards in elementary school. And this is another program that's similar to that. It's K through 5. And there are very simple, I think there's just a handful of tasks or challenges that they get to do each year as a kindergartner, as a first grader, as a second grader. And if you do those, then you get an award at fifth grade. And some of those are community involved and some of them are civics involved. So you can see your impact in your community as well as your opportunities because of the Constitution, as well as what civics means, right? What the Constitution means for our local area, because that's something that kids can understand. And so I love that they have this that's kind of baby stepping, right? Kind of giving you some
Right.
little inklings into what the Constitution means. And so I think that combined with fifth grade is when we study United States, and then again in I believe it's eighth grade,
Yeah.
where we can really focus in on some of those finer details of the Constitution. But this gives kids a background, a little foundation from which to build. And that's something I would love to see published more, right? Let's let people know about it so that we can all get on board, because that's one of those things I think is, again, it's fundamental, and that knowledge is imperative for us to know, not just as parents, but also to be able to teach our children. And this gives parents a fantastic tool to start, and it's very, very easy, very simple, and I think the kids would enjoy it. So
Absolutely. The more, and I'm all about that, the more we can make learning about our Constitution more engaging and more
yes,
interesting, because honestly, it is so fascinating and it can sound so boring. Oh, really? The Constitution is like, oh my gosh, eyes roll. People like, oh, I'm just
start
going to
tuning
follow.
out. Those are two hard words.
Yes, it sounds so boring, but really, once you start to learn about it, you go, this is amazing. They were so genius. This is incredible. I love how it really balances the rights of the people with the protection of the people.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just so amazing in so many ways. And the separation of powers is not limited to the three branches of government, and how they were just so clever in dividing, subdividing, keeping the power out of the hands of one or a few group, but to just keep it. But if we don't know that, we don't realize, and then they start to accumulate power that they don't
Or
cost.
erode. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
And they were
exactly.
so careful. It
Yes,
deserved
they were so careful and so
attention.
brilliant. Okay, that's real. I didn't know about the Civics Fitness
Yeah, it's
Award.
very cool. It's a very cool. And
Yeah.
again, it just barely started, so I don't know that there's a lot of publicity
Is
about
it
it, but
is that simply for fifth graders or up to
oh
fifth
no, it
grade?
goes K through 5.
K through.
So it starts in kindergarten, and
Okay.
just the cutest little tasks for the kindergartners that are
Mhm.
very easy for them to do. And then of course they get progressively more intellectual and more
Right.
involved as you get up to fifth grade. But even the fifth grade ones aren't very difficult. So
I would like to see us do a similar thing like that with from junior high school and then high school.
absolutely, to keep it going.
Create a civics fitness award for junior high students and then one
Mhm.
for high school
Yeah,
students,
yeah,
because I just don't want it to end at fifth grade. Again, you're going to
right.
get some superficial, some basics, which
Yeah,
is huge, but there's just so much more to it.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting. Okay, anything else you want to talk about? Any other great ideas of how educators can teach the Constitution, how parents can help assist that? Any other ideas? It's fine if you don't have any.
I just think there are ways to get involved that make it easy, and I think it's spreading that awareness that those are even available. I think Freedom's Light is a fantastic way to make history come alive. and to get kids excited about the Bill of Rights, right? And the different amendments. Who'd have thought those could be fun? But you make them fun there, and you involve them in a way that makes it memorable. And I think things like that are just so worth the time and the effort. So thank you for doing that. I think we need to publish that more as well.
Thank you to all of our amazing 150 volunteers that make it happen, because that is our mission, is to make learning it engaging and fun and interactive. And the more that you can actually do it and involve and experience the principles of the Constitution, then not only do you understand them better, but you retain it longer because you've kind of experienced it. And we have real story problems. We have games and activities. And so, you really do get to learn those.
Well, and not just the Constitution, but American history, right? Making those historical figures come to life and to be real people that actually lived and actually did really cool things, or maybe didn't seem cool at the time, but had a great lasting effect on what we enjoy now. And
absolutely,
so I think
because they're really quite ordinary people, but they just loved liberty. They wanted to be free, and they were willing to do really quite extraordinary things.
They're willing to make the effort.
They were, and the sacrifice.
And they didn't know, how it was going to be, or how it was going to turn out, or if it was going to be effective at all. But I feel like that's something we can learn from ourselves. Is it's worth the effort. It's worth trying. There are so many times that, I know I hear it with my teenagers where they're just, why bother? It's not going to, do anything, or nobody's going to care. Or it's not worth X, Y, and Z. And I think they're such good examples of giving it a shot. What have you got to lose? Let's try it.
Sacrifice. And even though you don't know what the outcome is going to be, and it seems against all odds that duty is ours, results are God's. Duty is ours. We have a duty
I love that.
to stand up and do things. That is by John Quincy Adams. When he was fighting against slavery for 10 years, he proposed bill after bill to end slavery, never got anywhere. People said, John Quincy, why do you keep doing this? You're not making any difference. You might not making any progress. How do you keep doing it? And why don't you change to something else? You just are so invested in that. And he said, duty is mine. Results are God's. My duty is to do what I can. And then you look at what the results, it took some time because it took people doing their duty, but God did come in with the results. And so that's a huge thing to heal our nation and to literally make the Constitution real for everybody.
Yes.
Everyone.
That's a fantastic quote and motivation. I had to write it down. So thank you for that.
It's one of my favorites. I love it.
That's a good one.
Okay. So I made me forget where I was going to go. But
so I was thinking, as far as other issues or other aspects, I have been out knocking doors, and I have passed out over 5,000 flyers, and I have met so many amazing people. It has been truly an incredible joy to talk to people and to understand their perspective and their issues or concerns or questions that they have about public education in Davis County. And I have started making a list of all of the different stories or concerns that people have shared with me. And I feel very strongly, as a representative, it is my job to make decisions on the board that accurately reflect the priorities and concerns of my constituents, the parents and grandparents and the stakeholders that live in my district. And so to that end, I feel very strongly about being in communication and being available to people to call me or to send me a message or whatever. And so on my website, I have my phone number. That's my phone number, so please don't sell it.
Yes.
I have my email. Please. You can call, you can text me, you can email, whatever works best for you. But I feel very strongly that it's important for me to know what's going on in your immediate circle so that I can then best represent you. And if we need to make a decision or change a policy or whatever the case may be, I can't do that unless I have open communication. And so that's something that I feel passionately about and have been very transparent about. And so that's the only other addendum I would add onto my priority list.
Okay, that is really
for now.
So I would encourage everyone, if you do care about your own freedom, if you care about the future of this state and this nation, if you care about your children and grandchildren or other children and grandchildren, please get involved. Duty is ours. Results are God's. Duty is ours. We have a duty. We have absolutely been blessed with so much richness, so much prosperity, so much freedom, but we have a duty and an obligation to stand up and do something with that and about it. And so we've just been so blessed. So I would ask everyone to get involved in your local school board race. You have someone that is running in your race. Please get educated. Find out about the different candidates. Find who is the most aligned with the Constitution. You might like both of them. You might find them very nice people. You might find both of them lovely and very nice people, as is in this case. But please find which one is the most aligned with the principles of the Constitution, who is actually more, understands it better and align more, who is really interested in the education of our children, not building the bureaucracy, because we have plenty of those. So I ask everyone to get involved. And it really does make a difference. If 100 people got 2 people to go do the same thing, it would turn an election.
Yes, and it has before. We have that happening historically all across the country.
Mhm.
So it just takes people getting involved and caring enough to do the research.
Yes. And then share it with your friends and neighbors, especially your neighbors that live by you, because they're going to have the same people on their ballot.
Right.
So once you've been educated, stand out and share and say, you know what, I did my research. And I like to tell my friends, this is why I'm voting for this person. I don't say, you should vote for Melanie. I say, this is why I'm voting for this person. Because if they're not aligned with me, I do not want anyone to feel compelled, but I tell them, this is why. These are my values. These are my beliefs. This is the constitutional priority that I have. And this is why. And again, I think education, because we're both educators. So we tend to think education is kind of the answer to a lot of problems. Because once people get educated, they are good people. They will choose wisely. Yes. So get educated, go out and educate others. You have enough time to still get out there and help. So Melanie, what's your website? How can people get connected to you? How can they help you? What is your website?
Yeah. So my website is vote, VOTE, Melanie, my name, .org. votemelanie.org. There's a contact button on there. There's a donation button on there. There's a blog that I try to keep up. It has some issues and policies, but not everything. So I've been trying to keep it up, but it's more important to me to go out and meet people. So for now, that's my priority. But I love hearing what your concerns and your priorities are, and I love being able to share that and to be. I want to be representative. I want to be what that title truly entails. And then so yeah, reach out.
I would invite everyone who feels even slightly interested or feel like they can to hold a meet and greet. Have your candidates hold a meet and greet in your house, the library, at the park. If you do it before the sun goes down, it's lovely. We're so blessed. I love this wonderful weather.
No, it's great.
But have a meet and greet and invite people to come, because we just need to know and connect personally with the people that seek to represent us. There's several reasons. One is you're going to get educated. You're going to know so much more. Plus, another reason is that when you go to these things or you host them, you develop a rapport and a relationship. So when I have a relationship with my school board representative, I can call them. I can email them. I can say, what in the world? What are you thinking, Melanie?
Help me understand. I don't get this.
Help me understand. I have a connection and rapport. And I'm like, well, I'm, instead of calling and yelling and going, what? You can't say, okay, please help me understand this. What was this about? Or then I can say, you know what? This is coming up. I want you to know this is why I'm concerned about this.
Exactly.
yeah, I will probably wait until you drop off to talk about teen centers, because I want to talk about teen centers, and I don't really want to put you in a position. Don't have to answer, you don't have to agree with me. I'm just going to talk about it because I feel really strongly about teen centers. So
Lots of people do. Lots of people
yeah.
do. And I will say that one of the things that has been a priority for me on this is to find out the truth, because we've heard so many different stories and so many different numbers. And so I have been on a fact-finding mission, because I feel like our parents, our grandparents, our teachers deserve truth.
Yes.
And so I want to be one who can share that. And so I have been researching that so that I can then say, here's what I found out, and here's who I talked to, and here's what I learned, so that we can all be on the same page.
That's so important, because what we're seeing happen is a lot of our feelings of love and kindness and compassion are literally being used against us. They're being co-opted and used to destroy the family, to destroy our society, frankly. And so we want to be careful. I'm sorry?
I say the family is the building block of society. We need to protect
Absolutely.
that.
Yes, we've got to protect the family. And so that's, and if you don't, do you want me to talk, or should I let you go and then talk about it? Because I don't want to.
I actually have a meeting that I have to run to. So I'm sorry. I would love to stay and chat more.
No, it's no problem. It's perfect. So I'm going to let you go. I appreciate you being with us, Melanie. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for fitting me into your schedule. I am so grateful. And yes.
Okay. And vote
God bless America.
VoteMelanie.org.
Yes.
What is a lovely, simple website. That's fantastic. VoteMelanie.org. Go on there. And if Melanie is not in your area, you can learn a lot about education by going on her website, going on there. And, you can contribute even if you don't live in her area. But definitely learn from her, and then go to your school board candidates and get educated and get involved.
And I actually have a blog post on there. There's a little icon that says, "Can I vote for you?" And there's a link in the blog to the Davis County map where you can put in your address and figure out which district you're in. And if you have questions or problems with it, send me an email, send me a text. I can help you walk through it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Melanie. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks, Dalane. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Okay, so I do want to just put in a real quick word about teen centers, because they sound so amazing. They sound wonderful, because don't we care about our teenagers? Like being a teen is it's a very difficult time of life. It is so emotional. There's so many things happening. And especially in this crazy world, I just can't even imagine being a teenager right now. So they're creating teen centers in literally every high school. Some are more developed than others, and some high schools have, really developed teen centers, and some just have very small things. But the idea is that every school will have a place for teens to go to that are homeless, so that they can go and get the needs that they have fulfilled. So one thing is they have laundry facilities, which sounds really nice, because if you have a teenager who's homeless, it gives them a place to go do their laundry. They can get clean clothes and get cleaned up, so they don't feel awkward or out of place in school, and they can shower. And those are really important things for everybody. But what we have to think about is school's the place for that? If you're homeless, is the school the best place to have that happen? They also have a place where they can go get snacks and get food. So what Melanie was talking about is, like, if the person goes in, a student goes in and grabs a snack, then in some schools they're counting that as a homeless person, which is quite ridiculous, because just because somebody's hungry, they want a free snack, they go in there and grab a snack, doesn't mean that they really are starving or that they're not getting fed by their parents. And the unintended consequence of this, and I'm very concerned about, my big issue with teen centers is, if you have a student or a child, as a mother of 6 children and having had 6 teenagers, which means I've had more than 6 teenagers kind of in my house, rotating through and having issues. You have a teenager that's mad at you because you said, no, you can't go to this party, you can't go out, you can't drive the car for 2 weeks because you violated the laws, you didn't get your homework done, or you didn't do this, or this act that is against our moral standards, then they're punished. Then the teens can just couch surf. They can go with their friends, or they can just go in and get laundry facilities, shower, get food. They get taken care of. And so what we're doing is we're allowing the schools or the government to come between parents and their children. And the schools should always be a means of supporting the family. We want the schools by the Utah Constitution, because the federal Constitution shouldn't have anything to do with schools at all, including funding them or any laws. But the Utah State Constitution, as most constitutions state, the public education system is designed to support the parents who have the primary stewardship and role of educating their children. The state is there to support that stewardship. And so we never want the government to come between parents and their children unless the parents are being very abusive and destructive to children. And I know some would say if you give children consequences, that's destructive. But of course, we need to give our children consequences so that they can become adults and they can learn, because all actions have consequences. So that is a concern. If you're dealing with the teen center and you're involved in the PTA, PTO, or in your children's schools, you need to be vocal and very cognizant and get educated to make sure the teen centers do not turn into wedges between families, that they don't come between parents and their children, and that children that don't need them, that do have homes, and it doesn't end up supporting kids and running away from home because they don't need their parents. They can do whatever they want to. So that is just my little word of advice that I have for you today. And I am very thrilled to invite our next Liberty Mom, a really great woman. And we would like to welcome Debby Mylar to our show. She, as I said, she is a Liberty Mom. She is the co-founder and director of a nonprofit 501c3 called Beauty from Ashes Ministries. Their mission is to bring redemptive hope through Christ-like response to those who have been impacted by domestic oppression and abuse. She's a certified Christian conciliator with the Institute for Christian Conciliation, and she's been doing this since 2005. She became a certified biblical counselor in 2010, and she received her master's degree in biblical counseling from Westminster Theological Seminary in Philadelphia in 2020. And then she began Beauty from Ashes ministry by co-leading a weekly support group for domestic abuse survivors in 2019. And she continues to this day to lead that, to co-lead it. And she loves to connect people to the gospel of Jesus Christ as they wrestle with relationships, emotional, spiritual issues in their lives. And this is a really, really important thing. And Debby, we welcome you to our show. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for your great work. And we're just really pleased to have you here. So Debby, tell us, why did you feel that this was a necessary thing to deal with? Obviously, you had been counseling and dealing with, why was it necessary to start a nonprofit to support women in abusive situations?
Yes. So as a counselor, I was doing marriage counseling, and was coming across situations that were, I mean, normally when we do marriage counseling, I don't, for those who do that, you look at to see, like, what is this person responsible for? What is this one responsible for?
Right.
And you want them to be accountable and to change, for the sake of the marriage. But what we see in domestic abuse is we see an imbalance of power and control. And when we have that, when someone is misusing their power or misusing their position in a relationship, then really it doesn't mean the other person is totally innocent, but they don't have any power to help the situation, because they are being empowered. And we kind of look at it like, normal conflict. We see this, right? We all have this in our marriages. But what we see in an abusive situation is we see this, right? And then we see this um, tearing down, destructiveness that happens. And what should be happening in a marriage is actually that leader should be pulling up their spouse and encouraging their growth and encouraging their health. And so I was seeing this in some of the situations I was working with, and at a growing rate. I mean, statistically, we see the statistics are 1 in 4 women will be at some point in an abusive situation in their life, and 1 in 5 for men. Actually, I'm sorry, it's 1 in 3 for women. And the statistics in Utah are actually a little bit worse than they are in most other states. So there's just a real need to deal with this. But then, as a Christian, we just have this amazing gift that we can offer, which is the redemption of Jesus Christ and the gospel. And so that's what signifies us as different than maybe some other, there's other organizations that deal with just domestic violence and help those situations. And we try to do as much as we can to help them with practical. That was part of the reason to become a 501c3, is to be a nonprofit. We can help with, some of their needs that they have. But we also have this niche of really bringing the gospel and bringing the hope that a relationship with Jesus Christ actually brings to all of us. But, to these situations, really brings hope and helps them to find their identity outside, in a sense of this, oppressed position, and to thrive. And then they can thrive emotionally, spiritually, and then hopefully also physically.
That is so wonderful, because that really is the answer to all of our life's issues. And we're trying to, because marriage is difficult, even when you have an amazing husband like I do, who's really fantastic. Yeah. It's still difficult because we disagree occasionally on things, and we both have our own personalities and our own, we all have power trips. Yeah. We all want to have power. I mean, it's kind of human. I don't like to admit it. Of course, I'm not proud of it, but I will admit there are times like, yeah, I want the power. And so the only real way to resolve these marital issues and even an amazing relationship when we're very, very happy, the best way is through a higher power. For me, through the Savior, Jesus Christ, but for anyone, it's through a higher power. But I really appreciate that you mentioned also that it's not just women that are in domestic abusive relationships, that men are too, because it's not about toxic masculinity or men against women. It's really, I think you really nailed it there. It's a power structure.
Yeah.
Who wants to have power over other people?
Right.
So,
and the root of it, Dalane, sorry to interrupt you, but the root of it is that a heart of entitlement, right?
Oh,
we think, right? And so we all have that. I had it this morning when I was going to leave the house, and my husband had my car. And I could feel inside of me, like, how dare he take my car? I need to use my car. And but the difference is, from hopefully someone who's healthy, hopefully I'm healthy, is that I could recognize it and see it and say, oh my goodness, I have no right to that car, right? It's his car too.
Right.
And so he had a right to the car too. And so we just needed to communicate better. But someone who is really in a pattern, and that's really important, is that there's a pattern of this oppression. They actually believe in their heart that they have every right to treat their partner or to treat their child in an abusive way because they're not getting what they want or what they think they deserve and they're entitled to.
That sheds such light, Debbie, because sometimes they're like, how does this happen? But that is such a good point, because in their mind, they have justified it. They feel entitled, and they feel like, I just heard about this situation where a woman murdered her husband, shot him. And I'm like, how does that happen? Like, I just cannot wrap my brain around it. And and then I thought, well, it's because somehow in her mind, she is justified.
Mm-hmm.
She is justified, and entitled is a better way, but she's justified or entitled to what she wants, and she's entitled to it. So she needs to remove all the barriers that stop her from having what she thinks she's entitled to having. And entitlement is the ultimate victim mentality. And
it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's an illusion, a fight for the illusion of control, because there is actually no power in being a victim. Being a victim is the most, it is just, there's no power in it, but we seek power through being a victim, and then we really have no power, but then we can be very oppressive to someone else trying to take their power that they rightfully have away from them.
Yeah.
So this must be very difficult. It must be very taxing on you emotionally to counsel people. But I guess it's also gratifying. Speak to us about how it is to counsel people that are dealing with this.
Yeah, I think because I do have this amazing thing to offer, which is, just this growing relationship with God in their lives. That I remember years ago, I think one of the things where when I was first starting to really do a lot of work in abuse, I was working with a woman who would call me in the middle of a panic attack. Because she, what do I do? My husband's doing this, my kids, she was so concerned for them. And I would, talk her down. I would pray with her. I would help her with some breathing exercises, over the phone. I would speak truth to her. And that happened fairly regularly. She was part of a support group so Beauty from Ashes, we have a weekly support group that meets online. And we actually, because it does meet online, we can have people from all over the country. We've even had some women from different parts of the world join us on Wednesday nights. And so she was part of that support group in addition to doing counseling with me. And to watch her change over time as she was healing through her relationship with God, through having support of other women and myself, coming alongside her, the support of her church. I saw her change.
Yeah.
And she stopped calling me in the middle of a panic attack because she wasn't having panic attacks anymore. And then what I was hearing instead was this strong, confident woman who was stable. And there's just like, that is so rewarding, Dalane. It's just so rewarding that, yes, are there difficult situations? Oh my goodness. Yes, they are so complicated and messy and destructive. But then to be able to share that redemptive power of the gospel and see them, people are hungry for help, right? And to be able to watch them transform. Sometimes their situation doesn't change all that much, actually, right? Like,
because you don't have control over your situation sometimes. You can't control someone else. You can't stop someone from being abusive by changing their behavior. You have to change your situation or your behavior, or maybe, that's what you teach people, I'm sure.
But by them changing,
Uh-huh.
sometimes that does change the situation.
Mhm.
You know, like I think of another example of a woman who actually did leave for a short period of time, got ha, became part of our support group, was also getting counseling, and she realized that she would do things just to keep her husband happy, right?
Right.
And
Sure.
keep him
Mhm.
from getting angry. And when
Right.
she realized she could actually put some boundaries in place, if he started to get angry, she would just leave. I'm sorry,
Right.
like, well, I'll be back at dinner time,
Right. I'll let you have cooling off. I'll be back. I
yeah.
mean,
And
when
then
you
that enabled her to actually,
Mhm.
as she grew in some of those skills in setting boundaries and, you know, and not being so fearful of him, then she was able to stay in the marriage for, well, for a period of time. Later, she did end up leaving, but it got her through this period where her kids were still at home, and she
Mhm.
wanted them to have that stability, of being, you know, in the home with the
Mhm.
completed family, you know, the family, until her kids graduated from high school, were in college, and then the behavior continued. And like you said, we can't change people, but we can, by God's grace, change ourselves. So those are some of the things.
Lovely. Okay, so you have this support group, and it's a Wednesday evening. And who can join that? Who is
Yeah.
available and allowed to join that?
Yeah. So if people wanted to join, they could. We have a website, beautyfromashesministries.org. We also have a phone number, 801 I'll say that again, 801-369-0089. And they could call, or there's, you know, they could just click some different buttons on our website, and they would probably talk to me, and then I would talk with them about their situation, and just to make sure it's a good fit. What we do in the support group is we have some again gospel focused material that we you know we go through that. Currently we're on a we just last night we're starting on chapter on dealing with guilt, shame, and regret.
Mhm.
There's a chapter on setting boundaries. There's chapters on healing and forgiveness, and, you know, just different topics like that. So, and then we also spend some time in prayer afterwards, and just support one another that way. In addition, we also have trained advocates that we can pair with someone who is in the midst of a situation, or they are at the end of the situation and they still feel like they need some support, either spiritual, emotional, or even to help them navigate um, their situation in terms of accessing community resources, or if there are legal issues that they're dealing with, we can come alongside them and help them to navigate some of those legal issues. Um, and we have a form that I would send out to them, and we would just they could just check the ways in which we could help them. We also spend time educating different ministry leaders, different pastors, church leaders, because a lot of people don't understand the root. Like we said earlier, they don't understand that it's if abuse is occurring in a marriage, then we tend to think it's a marriage problem, right? And
Right. Right.
it's
Mhm.
manifesting in the marriage, but
Right.
it's not actually a marriage problem.
Good point.
It's And so a lot of churches or pastors or ministry leaders will start to deal with it as a marriage problem, And so we do a fair amount of education. We have actually a ministry leader training coming up on October 23rd. That's at Gospel Hope Church. And again, you could access that through our website, and we can, and it's free. It's from 12 to 2. We're serving lunch because we just really want people to understand dynamics and to be able to identify it and to have some resources in order to come alongside and help people in this.
What a great idea, Debbie, because a lot of ministers or leaders, faith leaders of different churches, they're lay people. They have no training whatsoever. And who do you go to if you're struggling and you think, and of course we do think it's a marriage problem. That's a very good point. We think it's a problem with our marriage when we have those kinds of issues. And it is definitely affecting and impacting marriage. And
Yes.
even if we don't think it's our marriage, who do we go to? We often go to our faith leaders. We go to our ministers, our bishops, those leaders, and they are so often, great people, usually amazing people, but they're just ill-equipped. They don't really know how to help. They want to, but they don't have any training. So I think that is just amazing that you're helping train them to say, here's how you help and serve and support people. Then, of course, they can send their members to your support group.
Yes, they can. Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to come alongside churches and ministry leaders. In fact, we also, I do this on a regular basis. I meet with those, like if there's a specific situation, we as a ministry believe that God calls that church to minister and shepherd their flock. And so if they have a particular situation that they really, a lot of times they don't know what to do. So we don't come in and take over, but what we do is come alongside and say, and help them, like maybe there needs to be a safety plan. And so we have a whole form that we would share with them or help walk through that with them. We can create a whole team approach on how to help not only the survivor or the victim, but we also want to see the perpetrator. We want to see him or her, if it's a her, like mostly it's a him, but we want to see them redeemed as well.
Absolutely, because look at you, the problems that are solved when you help the person who has the issue. Because now they're not getting it all over everyone in their life. Because if they have those kinds of power structure issues, like you said, it's not just in their relationship or their marriage, like it is affecting their children. It could be at work. It really is. Someone with those issues, that can be impacting everyone in their life. And for them to heal and to figure out how to take care of those issues, that is huge. That's changing the world. That is really amazing. And then if you can keep a marriage or a family intact, that's
Absolutely
the ultimate dream.
Yeah. And we don't want to do that just to keep the marriage intact, right?
No,
Because
right.
we believe God cares about, the well-being of everyone in that family. But you're right. But we know that God values marriage. It was his idea, and it's good. So we do, and we have had situations where there has been that healing, for both parties, and then the marriage is restored in a way that is healthy and not destructive anymore. And that would be that is the ultimate goal.
That's the ultimate, and that's the ultimate payoff. But I suppose a person would need to desire some help and would have to be willing to acknowledge they have some issues, because you can't help someone more than they're willing to be helped.
It's so true. And unfortunately, the statistics are not good. That a lot of
people feel entitled. They feel entitled. It's very difficult to change that mentality, that victim mentality of entitlement.
It really is. And I think I often say, I wish we didn't have to exist. you know, like people will often ask me, because we're a fairly new ministry. We've been for the last 3.5 years. How's it going? And I always say, well, good, but I wish, I wish we didn't even have to exist,
Right. Wish we
but
weren't needed, but we are needed.
yeah, and with the way our society is,
Mhm.
I think it's only getting worse.
Of course.
And so I think there's always going to be a need, and it's growing, I mean, I think our growth, we're growing not only because I think people are hearing about us and,
Right.
finding us, but in 2023 we would have like one call a month, and in 2024 we're having 1 to 2 calls a week.
Wow. That's
So
so sad.
it is.
But the key is to help people through this and help them find an answer.
Hmm.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I
and also on that point, I'll just say a lot of the time these situations are super confusing. People don't understand, like, why is this happening? And then a lot of the time women are not only being blamed by their spouse, but they got married because they want to be married and they love this man and
right.
they want to make it work. And so they're thinking, well, what am I doing wrong? What do I need to do differently?
Very accountable. Hmm.
Say that again.
They're very accountable,
Yeah,
and
yeah, very
sometimes even
accountable.
blame themselves. Well, it's my fault. If I wouldn't have done this, he wouldn't have gotten angry. He wouldn't have done this. So sometimes we
Exactly.
take on ourselves someone else's actions, and so it's really teaching people how to be healthy.
Yeah. And so it's really confusing to them. A huge part of what I do is help them to gain clarity about what is going on. My husband's saying this, but I'm seeing this. So a lot of the time we want to believe the best about people. So we want to believe their the things that they're saying, that they love you, they care about you, they might even bring you flowers or bring your favorite chocolate or whatever. Um, but then their actions don't always line up with that. And
Right.
so to gain some of that clarity about what is going on here. And so I often will tell people, as much as you want to believe those words, and I want to believe those words,
Of course.
look at their actions. Do they line up with their words?
Because as Jesus taught, you can judge a person by the fruits of their labors. You judge them by not what they say, but the fruits, by what they actually do.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And I know that people that they will get really angry, they'll get abusive. And then when they calm down, they feel really bad and they have
Yeah.
guilt, they have sorrow and remorse. But that's like, I'll never do it again. And they really mean it in that moment, but they don't know how to control their anger or their issues. And but those things can be learned. But we do live in a day where we're being kind of told, oh, I am how I am, God made me this way, so you just need to embrace it and celebrate it with me. This is just how I am. And that is really an important part of being a follower of Christ or of God, is to know that we are here to overcome those things, not to embrace them, but to overcome them.
Yeah. And of
And
course they're hard. We need,
very hard.
we need God's grace. We need
Yes.
community,
Mhm.
to do that. But like you said earlier, like if there's a will to do that,
Yes.
then we can give those resources and we can help them and come alongside. But if there's not that will to do it, that work, it's not going to happen.
Right. Okay. So about your Wednesday night um,
Support group.
support group. Now, anyone can join that.
So we like to have people. I mean, yes, but we do have them call. We talk about their
Okay.
situation. We want to make
Mhm.
sure it's a good fit.
Okay.
Because to be concerned for all the safety of all,
Yes.
and the
Right.
confidentiality for all the women who are there.
Oh, yes. That's so
And
important.
so there's
Isn't it?
kind of
Yeah.
a little bit of a vetting. Um,
Okay. Yeah, vetting process to make sure that you're protecting everyone that is there.
Correct. And
Okay, so
also to make sure that they understand what we're doing, and that
yes.
it's, and often what I'll say to people when they do call, I'll say, why don't you try it 1 week, and just
Mhm.
see if you feel like it would be helpful for you. And then, we can go from there.
Okay, so tell us, like, the first step is for someone who has a need or feels like they might be in an abusive relationship. The first step is to call you.
Call or go to the website, and just
Okay.
you can get a lot of information from our website.
Okay. So
Um,
tell us the website. Let's make sure everyone knows what the website is, because that does seem like first go to the website, gather as much information as you can, then you know if you need to proceed from there.
Yeah. So it's just www.beautyfromashesministries.org.
Okay. Beautyfromashesministries.org. Very simple,
Yeah.
straightforward. And I
Yeah.
love the name Beauty from Ashes Ministries, because it's just, you have to add the ministries in there. It's
Yeah.
very important because
Yeah.
you're ministering to people who are turning beauty from their ashes. So
Right.
beautyintoashesministries.org. Beauty
Beautyfromashesministries.org. And
from, thank you.
yeah.
Beauty from,
Yeah.
the name of your website here.
Right.
Beautyfromashesministries.org.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
wonderful.
and that comes from Isaiah 61.
Mhm.
And there's a verse in scripture that talks about beauty from ashes.
Okay, so that is really great. So that's a great place for people to start. And they go onto your website and then they gather information. And I really think, I don't know, you can correct me, but it seems like it would be great for everyone. Just, we all, regardless of our situations, I think we all probably know somebody who might need some help. And it's good for us as people to go on and kind of know, so that when we run into a friend who's really struggling, who's in a bad situation, we can guide them and say, oh, you know what? I know that this addresses
Yeah.
this. So I would suggest this. So going on there might really help all of us, just to know what you do and what the resources are out there. But
Yeah.
especially for someone who is struggling, who is in a painful situation of
And
abuse.
I would say for those who might have a friend or have somebody that they want to walk alongside, I mentioned it earlier, but we do have a training in 3 weeks, on October 23rd. It's totally free. It's from 12 to 2 at Gospel Hope Church in Riverton. And we're providing lunch. We would love to have, and you also will walk away with a binder full of helpful information.
That
So
is amazing, and it's free.
it's free. Yeah, we really just want to,
Mhm.
we want people to have this information and be informed and be able to come alongside others and help them.
October 23rd. It's from 12 to 2. It's at Gospel Hope Church. That's in Riverton.
Yes.
So, yeah, and I'm sure that's on your website.
You know what? I'm not sure it is.
Okay.
I looked the other day and I didn't see it on there, but
Okay. So you
we're
need to
hoping.
get your pen or pencil out and write this down, because you're going to need this information. So October 23rd, 12 to 2. It's just 2 hours, but you're going to get the training. You're going to get the resources. You're going to get a booklet that has the information you can refer back to. It's at the Gospel Hope Church.
And
And
you
you'll,
get a free lunch.
oh yeah, and you get to eat, which is
Yeah.
always nice, because then we don't focus on our stomachs. We can focus on what they're saying, because we're
Yeah.
getting fed. So you're getting
So
physically fed and
yeah.
spiritually fed at the same time.
So if you do go to the website, you can there will be places for you to click, like, and it'll take you right to our email. And if you didn't get the
Okay.
information, we can get that to you very easily.
Beautiful. Okay, that's wonderful. So, and how long have you been doing this, Debbie? How long have you had your 501c3?
So it's been 3.5 years. Like I said,
Oh,
we actually started the support group. It's actually 5 years this month. And for those who don't know, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So I really appreciate you having me on your show for this month. So we started the support group, and then we really felt like we could do more to help if we became a nonprofit. So a year and a half later, we started the ministry. And we, in addition to the support group and the advocacy and the training that we do, we also have a referral list of counselors, and we have a referral list for attorneys that we
wow.
have vetted, that we feel like understand abuse dynamics, they understand trauma, and on the attorney side, that they understand domestic violence situations.
That is really important, isn't it? Because
It
not
really
everyone
is.
really can understand that, or I can see where that would be really beneficial and very
Yeah.
helpful and
I mean,
really necessary.
a lot of courts
Mhm.
currently, they just are going to 50-50,
Yes, they are.
for visitation and for
Mhm.
custody.
They're
And
splitting the children in half. They're literally splitting the kids in half. We're going to divide them in half. We're going to give equal, and then the child. I feel so passionately about this. It's just very upsetting to me because the child doesn't
yeah,
really have a home. They're visiting. They're visiting here half time. They're visiting here half time. They don't feel like they have, that consistency of a home. They're yeah, they're just like they're always out of a suitcase. They're like, I've got clothes here for here and clothes here. And it just, a child needs to feel like they belong somewhere and they fit somewhere, and to raise our children in 50-50. And I know I understand the idea. We want to be fair, but
hmm
that's not how and I totally understand that, because I actually feel like a father has traditionally been kind of ripped off because they
hmm
pay the child support, they maybe pay alimony, then they get 4 days a month to have
hmm
their children with them. I understand that that is, 2 weekends a month, every other weekend. I'm not suggesting that that's the best answer either. I think a
right.
father that's not abusive, that's a good father, should definitely get more time with their
Yep.
children. But I do think we can't split the baby in half. We can't split our children in half. And we do need to look at each situation and
Yes.
find what is best. And we do need to take into consideration the relationship and the ability of both parents to parent.
hmm Yeah. Yeah.
It's really important.
It is. And but I think what's happening in in courts is, even in Utah, is that they just start at 50-50, and then
Yes.
I'm not an attorney, I'm married to one, but
Yes, you are.
but but then you have to prove that there is abuse, and you have to prove, and it's often a very costly and time consuming process, and a lot of people can't afford it.
They can't.
um
Most people cannot afford it. It's so costly, both financially, which most people can't afford, especially in that situation, but it's also very costly emotionally and mentally. It
yeah,
just drains you. You're just like, oh, I just can't. I have nothing. The well is dry. So and you start from that premise, it's very hard to counter it.
yeah,
It is.
it is. And so that's why it's important to have an attorney who actually understands how destructive an abuse situation is, not only for that mother but also for the children. Although at the same time, I want to say that sometimes they do just target their wife, and they even if they are abusive, sometimes they can be good parent, they could good fathers.
Oh,
So
yeah.
again, it's different for different
Mhm.
situations.
Which is the reason that we have judges. The whole idea is that you have a judge that looks at all the factors, brings all the evidence in, and then makes, because otherwise we can just use AI, which is where we're headed. You just program it. You just program it in there, which is kind of what we're doing. We're just like program it in as 50-50. But we do need a real person who can be understanding, compassionate to all parties involved and weigh in all circumstances. And it is at best very difficult situation because people aren't always honest and everyone sees things from their perspective.
Correct.
Everyone, and most abusive people, I mean, they probably don't even either know that they're abusive or they wouldn't admit they are. I don't know. You can tell me if that's true or not. Do they know they're abusive?
No.
Okay.
They actually believe that they're entitled. So they may know, I mean, obviously if there's physical abuse or they're just yelling and screaming, like they know they're doing that.
Right.
And often they are sorry for it,
Uh-huh.
but they feel justified.
They feel justified or entitled. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they easily blame the other person because we're really good at that. Just like it's your fault. If you weren't so annoying, if you didn't do these stupid things I told you not to do, if you weren't doing this, I wouldn't get angry, although that's not necessarily true.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing we have coming up, I just wanted to share, I know we only have a minute or so left, is we sponsor a project called Christmas Blessing. And this is something that anybody can participate in. And you could go to our website and just say that you're interested in participating in the Christmas Blessing Project. So what we do is a lot of these women are single moms or this might be the first time that they are separated from their spouse. And so we want to provide somewhat of a Christmas for them. They wouldn't necessarily be able to afford gifts. So we actually have each one of our women fill out an Amazon wish list up to $100 per child as well as for themselves. And then we pair that family with it could be a church, it could be an individual, it could be a small group who would like to kind of adopt this family. And depending on whether it's a safe situation or not, there could be more or less involvement with the family, and certainly can always be praying for them. And and sometimes we try to give them the story so that they know and can be praying for them. And so last year was our first year that we did it, and we were able to sponsor 70 moms and their kids. So we raised over $7,000 for it. And so we're doing that again this year. Hopefully we've gotten some of the bugs out, and we would love for anyone to participate in that.
That is lovely. So that's on your website, Christmas Blessings Project. Okay, that's very nice. Yeah, and Christmas is going to be here before we know it. It really is coming up very, very quickly.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. But especially when you think of how the gorgeous weather we're enjoying. But yeah, Christmas is around the corner. I keep telling everyone, it's going to be here. It's almost time to decorate. So, which is what I like to do. I like the singing, the music, and the programs and things like that. Not the presents. Not a fan.
Yeah.
So that's really nice. That's really awesome. Debbie, you are an amazing woman. And I think it is really so great that you have chosen to use your talents to do so much for so many other people that are suffering. And I would just invite everyone to please pray for the people that are in these situations, that are suffering, that are in pain, that really need some guidance. They need some help. They need some peace. And they do need to know where to go, that you can help, that they will be guided to you. And I would just ask, I have a friend who fell and is in a lot of pain, and an amazing person, and, amazing people that have just done such amazing things can really suffer tragedies. And so I just invite everyone to, there's so much power in prayer, and especially in collective prayer. that we would step outside of ourselves and pray for others that are in tragic times and difficult times. And of course, I can't help but think about the people that are suffering from in the East, suffering from the hurricanes, and
Yep.
the people in those states they've lost everything. They've lost their homes. They've lost friends, family members. They've lost loved ones. It's so tragic. And so please pray for them. And that is something that there's not a lot that we feel like we can do here, but that is something that we have the power to do. And then we can celebrate knowing that they will be, this isn't it, that there is another life. There is something to live for and to look forward to. It gives us hope and keeps us going, that this life is short. There is another, everything about this life is really about the next life. And so let us remember that, and that let us pray for those people. It does make a difference. I know the power of collective prayer.
Yeah.
It's so amazing, and it can really lift the spirits and help people get through some really hard times. So Debbie, thank you so much for creating you and your great work. And just to say one more time, your website.
Yeah. Thank you, first of all, for having me. I really appreciate it. And the website is beautyfromashesministries.org.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Being a Liberty Mom. Thanks, Debbie. Okay, I just would like to end our show today with just talking about another issue that I think is a really important issue, and that is the strike that is happening at the ports of America, across America. And this is actually not a simple issue. It is a difficult issue because people do, everyone, I shouldn't say everyone because it's not everyone, but a lot of people, especially employees, are struggling with not making enough money because inflation has gone up so much. And whenever we do not have adequate gas, or when prices for gasoline go up, it impacts inflation, and it impacts the price of absolutely every good and every service. So that has impacted those strikers. They're asking for 75% increase in their wages, which I don't know, seems pretty rich, seems like a pretty egregious increase. I think usually little increments of increases seem a lot more realistic and doable. One thing that we all need to keep into consideration, if as an employer, you give someone a $25 raise, for a lot of employers, especially for something like that is labor, includes labor, you've got all of your Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, state taxes, federal taxes, FICA, FUTA, you've got workers' comp. So a lot of times, if I give someone a $25 raise, it would cost me out of pocket $45. So keep in mind, if you pay someone $50 an hour, it may very well cost $80 to $85 an hour to give someone that raise. So that is something that needs to be kept in mind, because whenever you give someone a raise, there are so many layers of taxes, workers' comp, unemployment, Social Security, Medicare, FUTA, FICA, all of those, they're huge. All those play into it. Insurance, all those are very expensive. So that is a huge impact. Now we tend to think, or you might think, well, unions are taking advantage. They may or may not be taking advantage. I do not pretend to know, but I think we do need to get educated on that. If the increases, I believe they probably are due a raise. It sounds very reasonable that they're due a raise. I don't have an issue with them receiving a raise, but if you go 75% increase, they're making, $75 to $100 an hour. That is going to make inflation higher because it's going to cost all of us, but nothing's more egregious than not having people unload. Another thing that they want is to make it so 6 years there can be no IA, or there can be no automation that they have to maintain, which again, I'm sorry, I hate AI. I hate AI, excuse me. I don't hate automation, but very concerned about it. There are things that I really do not like. And I have great concerns because it does replace people. And I like people. And I like going to my bank and being able to interact with people. I like going to the grocery store and interacting with real people, because when the machine makes a mistake, or I may make a mistake with the machine, oh my goodness, it's such a pain. I love that human interaction, which I think is very, very vital and important for all of us. And I think dock workers, you're always going to have some automation. You're always going to have people there, I think. And so, that's a consideration that you can see I can see both sides. I can see where a business wants automation to reduce costs, because then you get to make more money. I also see the employers, like, don't replace me with AI or with automation. I'm a real person. I need to make a living. And of course, we need to work that out with transitions. What I really want to focus on is America was founded on communism. We lived in common. The pilgrims came over. They were to live in common. They were told they must live in common. They did. And it did cause 50% of them to die, because living in communism is not effective. It doesn't work. It destroys the human spirit. People end up entitled. They end up wanting what they did not work for. They feel entitled to get the proceeds of others' labors, which is a violation of natural law and the laws of nature. Governor Bradford, after seeing the great demise of the human spirit and of human lives and the death and destruction and how it did not work, he instituted the free enterprise system, the free and equal exchange of value. I create value, you create value, we exchange equally with no pressure, no deceit. We both have created value and exchanged that value equally, and it's based on a moral foundation. That's the free enterprise system. We've moved from there to capitalism, where we may or may not create value, but we want to make money. There's nothing wrong, evil, with wanting to make a living, make money. We all need to make money. The capitalistic system is that I create a product or a service and I make money off of it. That's essential to keep the world going. What it's missing is a natural moral foundation. And that's where I think we're having some issues. We want people to make money. Big business deserves to make money. If you're willing to start a business, you're willing to have this infrastructure, which costs a lot of money and is a huge risk. Employees tend to want to make the amount of money that the owners of their business make. Why shouldn't I get to make money? You should. And we tend as employees want to make as much money as the owner. Well, they're making money off of me. I should get to have more of that. What we have to take into consideration and understand is that business owner or the business has taken a great deal of risk, and they have a lot at risk. If they don't make money, they won't be there to make sure there are employees. And when a business starts a business, there's a huge amount of risk that the employee does not take. When an employer makes money, the employee wants to make more money because the employer is making more money. But does the employee want to reduce their wage when the employer takes the risk and does not profit? When they lose money, when they lose a great deal of capital, does the employee want to also participate in that loss? Generally, I would say no, of course they don't, because they're like, I'm an employee, I'm not a business owner. I want the security of having a job where I get a paycheck and it feels secure and it comes in and I don't have to participate in the risk. And so we need to be really mindful that the capitalistic system, as well as the free enterprise system, does take into consideration the only way to succeed is taking risk. And anyone willing to take risk needs to be compensated for the willingness to take the risk when they succeed, because they will take the loss when they fail. Because if they don't take the loss at failure, then what we have is socialism and communism. We also need to be very mindful of crony capitalism. That is where you have a business that makes money, but they do not create value for their customers, and they create a good or service at the expense of their customers and oftentimes at the expense of their employees. So this would be big, big businesses who seek to make money off of others people with no regard to their life, health, safety, security, or even they don't create value. And we need to distinguish between those two, because crony capitalism, in my personal opinion, has absolutely no place in America, and we need to weed it out. It is also, crony capitalism is where you have the government and private businesses enter into contracts with each other that give the government power in a business that the government shouldn't have, and also gives businesses power through the government that a business shouldn't have, that the government does for them. Now, I'm not talking about the government putting out there for bid to do a job, a service that the government needs, and putting it out for bid and saying, okay, we're not picking winners and losers. We're allowing bids, and we let the free enterprise system to work. I'm going to do bid. I'm going to do bid. Different businesses bid. And then you look at who creates the most value, which one is the best price, the best for the government employees, the government funders of that, which is the citizens. Which one is in the best interest of the citizens? And then you choose that. That is very different than a public-private partnership where the government picks winners and losers. They pick a specific company, and then they work through that company. That is no longer the free enterprise system, where there's no competition. The government chooses one and they fund it, and that business is funded by the government without competition, without going up to bid, and without having to create value. That's a public-private partnership, and that should not be allowed in the United States of America. So keep that in mind as we lobby, as we discuss, as we look for solutions to this very serious problem of really any strikes, but especially the strikes at our ports. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I hope you will remember that you are the guardian of your liberty. Remember that and do something about it. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. KMMU.org, Main Street Media, Utah.